Hello and welcome back. This video is going to be about the DX9 detail setup. There's a lot of features and functions that are very useful in the DX9. Much similar to the DX6, and someday I'll, not related to the Kadet LT-40 set of videos, but somewhere in the not too distant future I'm going to do a comparison between the DX6 and the DX9. In terms of how they're programmed and how you use them. But for the SIG Kadet LT-40, as I said before, I'm going to use my DX9 radio. We've already done the setup, the initial setup. If you haven't seen video number 23, which was the how you set up the new model, it basically did the bare minimum so that the radio would function and talk to the airplane and the receiver in the airplane. So what we're going to do is go step by step through all of the things, and I'll do a quick review of the two that we already did in step 23. So with that said, let's get started. Okay, I'm going to start by turning on the radio and making sure we're on the right model. And we're on model number 26, Kadet LT-40. So the first step is going to be to go into the setup screen. This is the function list screen, and we want to go all the way down here to system setup. And it always gives you a caution which says the radio frequency will be disabled while this is in place. That's okay because the aircraft isn't on. So when we initially did the model setup, the model type was default, but we actually changed it to repeat it, say aircraft. The model name is where we put the number 26 Kadet LT-40 in there. And the aircraft type we did back in video number 23, where we said we had dual ailerons and a normal tail. So the next is the flight mode setup. Right now flight mode is not set up. So switch, it says, as you can see, switch 1 is inhibited and switch 2 is inhibited. With the DX9 you can have two switches to determine flight modes. So if switch 1 is a 3-position switch, then you have 3 flight modes. If you enable a second switch, you'll get up to 5 flight modes. For what we're going to do, 3 flight modes is enough. So I want to come down here and I'm going to move the radio to show you which flight mode switch I'm going to use. I'm going to use this 3-position switch right here. As you can see, that's switch letter B. So that's what is the normal flight mode switch as far as I'm concerned. So we're going to use the switch B. So I'm going to come down here and switch 1, and I want that to say switch B. Alright, so that's switch B. And flight mode 2 is going to be disabled. So we get 3 flight modes. And if we go to the next screen, you can see if I move the switch down here, I get flight mode 1, flight mode 2, or flight mode 3. Well, the next step in this process will allow us to change those names and determine which flight mode, both name and how it's spoken. So I'm going to go back to the list. And so flight mode setup is in, and spoken flight mode we'll do together here. So now I'm back to the main setup screen. I'm going to select with my thumb here spoken flight mode. So flight mode 1, I don't want it to say flight mode 1. So I'm going to come down here and press that. So edit flight mode name. I don't want that to say flight mode name. I'm going to double click the clear button to clear that out. And I want it to say launch mode. So I want a capital L. And oops, LAU N launch. I like to use capital and then lowercase. It's just my preference. It's easier for me to read. So there's launch mode as now because the switch is in the down mode 1 and position 1 of the 1, 2, 3 is why I'm changing launch mode 1. So I don't want to speak mode 1, I want it to say launch. So I'm going to find where it says launch in here. There's land. And I'll go back to the beginning here. So spoilers, I don't know where these are. Idle up. Mode 2, mode 3. Launch. Okay, so there's launch. It was just after mode 10 and before cruise. So launch is what I want. I come down here and test.
Launch mode.
So it says launch mode. Although it says speak launch, it speaks launch mode. It has nothing to do with what I wrote there. So there's launch mode 1. Now I'm going to go to, I'm going to come over here and flip the switch to the middle position. When I do that, down here I get mode 2. So that's mode 1. Flip the switch to the middle position, we get mode 2. I want to change this to say let me clear it. And I'm going to use the word cruise. By the way, if this is your first one you're doing, you'll get used to it. After 25 of them, I sort of breeze through them. So we got cruise mode. So back, and so we don't want it to say mode 2, we want it to say pass mode 10, there's launch, there's cruise. Okay, we'll come down here and test.
Cruise mode. Cruise mode.
Okay.
Cruise mode. Launch mode. Cruise mode. Launch mode.
So I'm just testing to show you that it works. Let's go back into the system setup. Go into flight mode. So we don't want launch mode, we don't want cruise mode, we want mode 3. So I'm on the upper switch up here at the top, and we're going to change that name to say, double click the clear button, and I want it to say landing mode. So you may be wondering, what is launch mode, cruise mode, landing mode? Maybe I haven't explained that yet. Well, first off, let me change the mode name here, what it speaks, to landing.
Landing mode.
So test.
Landing mode.
Test is good. So what is launch mode, cruise mode, and landing mode? Well, the modes help you with one flip of a switch, change your dual rates. It can do all kinds of things. If you had gears or flaps or whatever, which we have none of, then it can, in that mode, activate things for you with one flick of a switch rather than doing a whole bunch of switches. We won't get into that in detail here. What we're going to use this for is to change the dual rates. I want a different rate for the launch, cruise, and land. And so we'll see that when we get to the assigning the dual rates to a switch, and it'll be assigned to this B switch. Okay, so now we have launch mode, cruise mode, and landing mode, and so that's spoke and flight mode. Let me stop there, and I'll pick up the next one in a minute.